All right, last thing to do is to plot this spectrum. And you click on the plot icon, and it brings up a new menu. And this is really nice because when you print this or you make a PDF of it, whatever you choose to do, it will look exactly like it looks on the screen. So if you want to move things around, so these parameters, you can drag those. If you don't like this symbol, you can move it out of the way or delete it. You can make your spectrum a little bit bigger to fill the available space. You can really customize this to however you want it to look. All right, so one of the first things you notice here is that there's a lot of white space on each side of the spectrum, which doesn't really give us any information. So it would be nice to kind of cut that out. So if you click on the axes grids option down here, you'll see this plot limits. And this is what you can change to kind of zoom in on the spectrum. So the spectrum kind of ends around 8.7 or so. So maybe I'll make this 9.2. And down here our TSP peaks at 0. Maybe I still want to keep that on, so I'll go a little bit to the right of that, so minus 0.2. So now the spectrum's kind of filling the whole available space, and that looks a lot nicer. You can see that our integral values are present. And one thing I like to get rid of is these little curves because they actually cover the peak. So if you click on the peaks and integrals option here, under the integrals section, there's a curve. So if you uncheck that, those little curves go away. And so now you can see the full peak really nicely. One thing that's missing up here is our peak picks. And the way we can put those on is here's the peaks, and we want our labels to show up. And there they are, but they're off screen. And we can kind of drag them back on if you click on this box and then drag it down. Now we have our title, which again we can move, and we have our peak picks. We've got our integrals. Our spectrum is nicely centered on the screen, and so everything looks really nice here. And you can now go up to publish, and you can either print it or you can make a PDF of it, however you want to deal with this. So in some cases, there's one extra thing you might want to consider doing on this plot menu, and that would be to zoom in on these peaks a little bit so you can see them. And so the way you do that is to click on that little blue icon at the top there. It was a little blue arrow, and click here to insert new elements. So we can click on this little icon that says NMR, and there's a drop down box. So we actually want to insert another one-dimensional proton spectrum, exactly like we have here. So you click on that, and then you click and you drag, and you make a box essentially. That spectrum can be manipulated in exactly the same way that we manipulated this spectrum. And what we're really interested in is maybe zooming in on these peaks a little bit because these are actually multiplets, and so we might want to see the multiplet structure. So we can click on this peak and we can zoom in and out just like we would normally. So I can use this mouse button to kind of zoom in. I can use this button to kind of move things over and center them. I can make this a little bigger and zoom out a little bit more. And so you can make this window bigger if you really want to see the peaks more, but you can now see that these are definitely multiplets, and you can kind of see more of the fine structure that's present in them. And again, you can make as many of these new little windows as you want. The way you do it is click on the blue arrow, go to NMR, 1D spectrum, and you can insert as many of these as you want. Oops. If you don't like what you did, just right click on it, delete it, and you're back to your normal spectrum.